All right, welcome to another deep dive. Today we're headed to, well, virtually, of course, we're headed to Monson Lake State Park
Okay.
in Minnesota.
Cool.
And, well, one of the first things that kind of jumped out at us
Yeah.
is that it's, Minnesota's smallest state park.
Really?
But, and that's what's kind of cool about this is that we've got all these sources, right? We've got trail guides and YouTubers and even, like historical records and stuff.
Right.
And they all are pointing to this, really diverse landscape and tons of wildlife, which you wouldn't really expect from the smallest state park, right?
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I always think that
Yeah.
the small places can sometimes hold the most surprising things.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like that whole, what is it? Like a microcosm or something like that, where you have this small little area that is just packed with a variety of stuff.
It kind of reminds me of that saying, like, good things come in small packages.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to see if that holds true with Monson Lake, right?
Right.
And there's some pretty cool things that we already found, just from like the initial, kind of research, right? We're talking about like tranquil trails.
Okay.
People are catching these like huge like these lunkers, as they call them, right?
Wow.
But then there's also this like kind of dark history associated with the park too that we're going to get into.
Okay.
And just as like a little teaser here.
Okay.
We were looking into, who actually owned like the lakes in the past.
Oh, wow.
And there's this like really surprising answer that I think is going to blow some people's minds when they hear it.
I'm intrigued.
But we'll save that for a little bit later, right?
Yeah.
So let's start with the basics, right?
Okay.
So all trails, always a good starting point.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Gives Monson Lake a 4 out of 5 stars, which is respectable.
Yeah, definitely.
That puts it at number 56 out of 76 state parks in Minnesota.
Okay.
So kind of in the middle of the pack there.
Yeah.
As far as that goes, right?
Right.
And they really highlight this one trail called the Monson Lake Hiking Club Trail, which is
right.
It's just an easy little loop, like 1.1 miles.
Okay, cool.
And it's pretty flat, minimal elevation gain, so
Right.
good for a relaxed walk.
Yeah, I like that. Sometimes you don't need to do anything crazy. You just want to get out there and just take a stroll,
Yeah, exactly.
I like to see what you can see.
And it sounds like, even though it's, it's kind of a smaller park and just this one main trail,
right.
There's actually a lot of diversity packed into that small area.
Oh.
You've got, wooded areas with all these mature trees like basswood and bur oak.
Okay.
And then that kind of gives way to marshes and lake shores. And there's all this like plant life. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if you saw this, but the emergent plants, they're like, they grow like, out of the water.
Right.
And they're kind of unique to that kind of like marshy lakeshore environment.
It's really interesting to think about how all these different habitats are just kind of, existing in this relatively small space.
Yeah. So it's definitely more than meets the eye, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Now, to get a real feel for the park, we actually dug into some YouTube videos, which are always fun because it's like getting that, firsthand perspective from people who've actually been there, right?
Right, yeah.
So the first video we came across is called Camping at Monson Lake State Park. And this one really highlights this kind of primitive camping experience.
Oh, okay.
There's no electricity. It's all about like, cooking over a fire and just being kind of immersed in nature. And of course, he definitely mentioned mosquitoes.
Oh no, the dreaded mosquito.
Lots of mosquitoes.
Yeah, that's often part of the package, right? Yeah. Especially when you're, especially around the water.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But it was interesting too because he also kind of talks about his own personal struggles with anxiety and sleep apnea.
Oh wow.
And it kind of became part of his whole camping experience, which I thought was really,
I mean, that's something we all bring,
right,
to our experiences, right? Our own challenges and ways of seeing the world.
Yeah. And it's a good reminder, right, that everyone kind of interacts with nature in their own unique way.
Exactly.
So the next video is it's called Day Hike.
Okay.
And this one's completely different.
All right.
It's a solo hike.
Oh.
On a pretty chilly day, actually.
Yeah. Oh.
So, showing that the park has this like beauty in different seasons, right?
Yeah.
But the cool thing about this video is that he actually dives into some of the history.
Okay.
And do you know that Monson Lake State Park is the only state park in Minnesota?
Wow.
That hasn't changed?
Really?
Since its construction in 1937.
That's amazing.
Which is pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, I wonder why that is.
Well, so it was actually built by the Veterans Conservation Council.
Okay.
Which is the same group that built a lot of the structures at nearby Sibley State Park.
Okay, yeah. Interesting.
And the reason why they actually created this park is actually kind of a tragic one. It was a memorial site for a massacre that happened during the Dakota-U.S. War.
Oh, wow.
Of 1862.
That's heavy.
So it's really interesting how they kind of turned this place with such a dark history into something that is now,
right.
Peaceful and beautiful.
Right. I mean, that's often how history works, right?
Yeah.
Places evolve over time and their meanings change.
So the last video we watched, it's called a Minnesota State Parks Monson Lake State Park Tour.
Okay.
And this one, well, it definitely reinforced the whole mosquito thing.
Oh, really?
It's like every...
They're infamous.
Yeah, but it also highlights like just the simple joys of being out on the trail and encountering, spider webs and the wildlife and stuff like that. And he actually reveals a little secret.
Oh, cool.
The hiking club password.
Oh, wow.
Which is...
Gotta know.
H-tree.
H-tree.
Yeah.
All right, I'll have to remember that one.
So if you're ever out there hiking and you come across someone who says H-tree,
right,
you'll know they've done their research.
Exactly.
So that's kind of our initial impressions from the YouTube videos.
Yeah.
But to really get into the nitty gritty, we're gonna have to go a little deeper into some of these.
Right.
The articles and the historical records.
Yeah. Let's see what else we can find.
Exactly. So we'll be right back after this.
All right, so we've got this article, right? It's called Monson Lake Memorial State Park, a Minnesota state park located near Willmar.
Oh, okay.
And it kind of sets the scene, geographically speaking.
Right.
It tells us that the park is near the city of Willmar.
Okay.
In Swift County, which is, it gives you a sense of that kind of rural Minnesota vibe.
Yeah, kind of out there in the countryside.
Exactly. Yeah. But what's interesting is that it's not completely isolated.
Right.
The article mentions that it's actually close to a bunch of other state parks and wildlife management areas.
Oh, cool.
So it's you could use Monson Lake as a jumping off point, right? To explore a whole network of, natural areas.
Like a little hub?
Exactly. Yeah, like a little hub for outdoor adventure.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now remember how all those YouTube videos were talking about the mosquitoes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The infamous mosquitoes.
So we actually found this article from the Willmar Lakes area website.
Okay.
It's called Monson Lake State Park, Sunburg, Minnesota, Willmar Lakes area.
All right.
And it confirms that, it's not just a haven for mosquitoes. It's actually a really popular spot for bird watchers, too.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Which is, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
All that water, all those different habitats.
It makes you wonder if the mosquitoes are part of what attracts the birds.
Oh, yeah, maybe that's their food source.
Right.
Yeah.
Got to keep the ecosystem balanced.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they even have a whole bird list.
Oh, wow.
If you're a serious birder, you can go and try to check off all the different species you can find.
That's pretty cool.
So this article also lists a bunch of recreational activities.
Okay.
Which is, always good to know.
Mm-hmm.
They've got picnic areas. So if you just want to, have a relaxing afternoon, they've got a fishing pier.
Nice.
Which is, that's where you're going to catch some of those lunkers that we were talking about.
Okay, cool.
And then they even have geocaching, which is always a good time.
Yeah, that's a good way to get people, exploring the park.
Yeah.
And looking for things.
And let's not forget the boating and canoeing.
Yeah.
They have all these different routes that you can take on the lake.
Okay.
And I imagine that's, like a completely different perspective on the park.
Yeah, you get to see it from a whole different angle, literally.
Yeah. And for the winter enthusiasts, they have snowshoeing.
Okay, cool.
So it really seems like, no matter what time of year it is,
right,
there's something to do.
there's something for everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so I think it's time to circle back to that 1862 attack that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And we actually found this Wikipedia article on the Dakota War of 1862.
Yeah.
And it does a really good job of explaining kind of the historical context.
Right.
You know, the tensions between settlers and indigenous people during that time.
It's important to understand that background.
Yeah.
Right? To really grasp the significance of this event.
And it's also, it's not just about the attack itself. It's about how this park became a memorial site and how that, you know, kind of shapes the way we think about this place today.
Exactly. It adds another layer of meaning.
Exactly. Yeah. So the article actually recounts the events of the attack.
Okay.
And it's a pretty harrowing story.
Yeah, I imagine.
But it also highlights the courage and resilience of the survivors. And it's a good reminder, right?
Yeah.
That this place, you know, it's seen a lot of history.
It's seen its share of tragedy. Yeah.
And it's important to kind of acknowledge that.
Right, to remember and learn from the past.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's also interesting is that the article actually talks about the evolution of the Memorial Association itself.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, at first it was very much from a Eurocentric perspective.
Right.
But over time, they've kind of shifted to a more inclusive approach.
Gotcha.
You know, acknowledging the perspectives of both settlers and indigenous peoples.
That's important. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
To have, you know, multiple perspectives represented.
And it's a good reminder, too, that history is not static.
Right.
It's constantly being, you know...
It's always evolving, right?
Reinterpreted and reshaped.
Yeah. As we learn more and our understanding changes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, to bring things back to the present, we actually checked out some Trip.com reviews.
Oh, cool.
And guess what?
What?
They're all over the place.
Really?
Some people found Monson Lake, like, underwhelming and run down. And then others like, this is perfect. It's so relaxing.
That's so interesting. You know, it's like beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Right. Yeah.
Or maybe Monson Lake just appeals to a certain type of person, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Someone who's looking for like a specific kind of experience.
Right. And I think, you know, it's important to remember that those reviews are just, you know...
They're just opinions.
Subjective.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what one person might find boring, another person might find absolutely delightful.
Right. And it all depends on what you're looking for.
Exactly. What you're hoping to get out of it.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of practicalities, right? We also looked at the DNR website.
Okay.
And the Parks and Trails Council page.
All right.
And they give some more, you know, concrete details about the park. So what's kind of fascinating is how they present the park's small size as both a good thing and a bad thing.
I can see that,
You know, on the one hand, it's quiet, it's secluded, perfect if you're looking for, you know, a peaceful...
Like a little escape.
Yeah. But on the other hand, it means limited facilities. You know, if you're someone who needs...
If you need all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
Maybe not the best spot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they do mention that there are... electric and non-electric campsites.
Cool. So they cater to different camping styles.
Yeah, whether you want, you know, the full
hookup.
Yeah, the full hookup experience, or if you're more into that
primitive
camping.
Right.
And they also confirm that the trail is, you know, just over a mile long.
Right. So pretty manageable.
Pretty manageable for most people.
Yeah. Good to know.
So, are you ready for that?
Oh, yeah.
Surprising fact.
Hit me with it.
Okay. So, remember how we were talking about the lakes being privately owned at one point?
Okay.
So it turns out this all stemmed from a really bad drought.
Oh, wow.
In the 1930s.
Really?
And the lakes literally dried up.
So they just disappeared.
They were gone.
Wow. That's crazy.
So
how does that lead to private ownership?
Well, according to Minnesota law, at the time, if a lake bed was dry for a certain period, it was considered abandoned, and you could claim it. And there's private property.
So these lakes just vanish and then reappear with a whole new owner.
Essentially.
Yeah. That's wild.
So they eventually refilled, of course.
Right.
And then through a bunch of legal stuff. Land acquisitions and things like that. They eventually became part of the state park system.
Gotcha. So it was like a temporary ownership situation.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
A little quirky twist of fate, right?
Yeah, it makes you wonder like what other strange things have happened in the history of this place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So
okay.
I think it's time to start wrapping up our deep dive into Monson Lake State Park.
Sounds good.
You know, we've covered a lot.
Yeah, we have.
We've talked about you know, the diverse landscapes, the wildlife, this like kind of dark and interesting history.
Right. And we've seen that even a small park can hold, you know, so much richness.
Exactly.
So much to discover.
And I think, you know, one of the big takeaways here is that, you know, size doesn't always matter.
It's not everything.
Right.
You can
find amazing things in the smallest of places.
And I think, you know, Monson Lake is a perfect example of that.
Absolutely.
So knowing what we know now about this park, about its history as both a site of conflict and a memorial, how do you think that shapes
That's a good question.
the experience of visiting it today?
I think it adds a certain weight to the experience. You know?
Yeah.
Like you're walking through this landscape knowing that it's been shaped by these powerful events.
Right.
And it encourages you to be more mindful, you know?
Yeah.
More reflective.
Yeah. And maybe that's part of what makes Monson Lake so special.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's this quiet, secluded place where you can really connect with nature and with history.
Yeah.
And with yourself, in a way.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So it sounds like Monson Lake might be a place for those who are you know, looking for a little bit of
solitude.
Yeah, solitude, a little bit of reflection.
And maybe a little bit of adventure, too.
Right.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe you'll even encounter some of those friendly mosquitoes.
Those infamous mosquitoes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's intrigued by Monson Lake's, you know, blend of history and nature and that kind of tranquility, we definitely encourage you to seek it out.
Go check it out.
It might just surprise you.
Exactly.
And until next time.
Yeah.
Keep diving deep.
Happy trails, everyone.
You know, it's funny. I was just thinking, like, we spent all this time talking about this tiny little park, and it's like we've uncovered this whole world.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
It's like
it just goes to show you don't need a huge, you know, sprawling landscape to have a really meaningful experience.
And it makes me think about, like, you know, people who are always chasing those big. Like, you know, the national parks and stuff.
Yeah, the iconic destinations.
Maybe they're missing out on these little hidden gems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Sometimes the most powerful experiences are found in those unexpected places.
You know, those places that maybe don't have the crowds or the fancy amenities, but they have something else.
Exactly, they have. You know, that special something.
That like quiet kind of magic.
Yeah, that sense of peace.
Yeah.
And solitude.
And I think, you know, Monson Lake, it seems like it
definitely has that in space.
So for anyone out there who is, you know, looking for that kind of experience.
Right.
You know, that blend of nature and history and just...
And a little bit of reflection.
Yeah, just that chance to... You know, kind of disconnect from the hustle and bustle. I think Monson Lake might be.
Yeah. Hope that.
Yeah. It's worth checking out.
Worth checking out.
Yeah.
Might not be for everyone.
Right, but for the right person, it could be really special.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this deep dive.
That's good.
To Monson Lake State Park. It's awesome.
Hope you enjoyed it.
I did.
And we'll catch you next time.
Yeah. See you later.
For another deep dive.
Happy trails, everyone.